Blues Hotel.
Matt Tandy, thanks for joining me at the Blues Hotel. How are you?
Hey, good thanks, Calvin. How are you going, mate?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, fantastic, fantastic. Congratulations on the release of your EP, Banister Street.
Nah, thanks heaps, man.
No,
Thanks heaps.
great. Matt, can I just start by asking about your musical career, how it's evolved from the beginning till now?
Well, to be honest, my little brother was the original musician in the family.
Oh,
He was a metalhead who did his 1,000 hours in his room with the long hair, and I was actually more of a sporting. I had a sporting background, but I was always a bit envious of what those guys were doing. And basically, when I turned 19, all the sports went pear shaped, and my dad is just showing me Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee on a disc, and for some reason that music really resonated with me. It was the first sort of blues I was exposed to. So I started as a drummer. I met a young lady. We traveled around Australia, but obviously I couldn't take the drum kit. So I sort of fell into playing blues guitar pretty early. And that's kind of become my niche. And over the last 2 years, definitely found the slide. But I've been going now for about 13 years. I was a slow starter. I was a lead guitarist in a few bands, a drummer in a punk band that toured once. And it's only been now that about probably 4 years that I've become a original songwriter. And I got a body of work of about, I think we've worked out about 83, 84 originals now. So it's really nice. The EP was trying to record some of the backlog, which admittedly was more roots sort of music. Heavy Sippin on the EP is sort of the direction that I write. You know, that's sort of the formulas that I used to write now. But yeah, you can ask anything you want. I've had a really long and exciting and fun and weird sort of musical journey.
sure. So, who would you say your influences are, like, whether it be blues, roots?
I've had a lot. I've actually had a lot. Being born in the 90s, when I first sort of started out, I went through all the usual suspects like Jack White, Kurt Cobain, Led Zeppelin. But I'd say my first sort of guy that influenced my sound I'd probably say Gary Clark Jr. When I discovered him, things started to change. He just had that real dirty sort of blues sound. Then I was exposed in Melbourne to guys like Junior Kimbrough and the Hill Country Players.
Yep.
And that became my signature blues sound. I really like that old school, dirty, porch. That's my jam. That's what I listen to. That's what I like to play. And it still comes through. But I'd also say lyrically, I'm a big Bob Dylan fan. And also, even though they're not musicians, guys like Kerouac, beat poets and stuff like that. Like I'm a real literature buff. So I really draw from that and combine. I'm sort of a Frankenstein of a lot of different things. So
Sure.
yeah.
Awesome. So you've lived in Melbourne before?
Yeah, I lived there for 3 years in Preston.
Yep.
Me and a young lady moved down there. We were young and I guess a bit crazy, and we went down there to get famous. That didn't happen at all,
Yep.
as it doesn't when you're 19. It was very humbling, but we were lucky to fall into a community where I was that frustrated drummer trying to pick my first chords and stuff like that. And I was really lucky that a few of the guys from local bands in Melbourne, who are extremely talented, could see that I wasn't going to stop. So they invested a little bit of time in me.
Okay.
It was very nice to come home. And I remember my little brother sort of standing to me. He's like, "Oh, you bugger. Like, well, you've been practicing." I'm going, I got lots of time down there, man. That's all I'm doing, you know.
You didn't sell your soul to the devil by any chance, did you?
Look, I may have, but Melbourne's Melbourne, and I don't remember.
Being in Melbourne, the music scene is massive. Did you get a chance to be involved with the Melbourne Blues Appreciation Society? Did you know?
Nah, unfortunately, I didn't. If I knew it existed,
Yep.
I would have.
Yep.
My sort of exposure was I was lucky to work in a lot of the rock and roll bars on Johnson Street.
Oh yes. Yep.
And I was very lucky. Like, I got to, obviously, I had to sweep up after people and that, but I got a lot of front row seats to a lot of different types of music.
Yep.
Hung out at Cherry Bar a bit, but we were also in a bit of an underground warehouse sort of doping scene, but we kind of attracted a lot of international musicians that happened to be coming through and just so happened to stay at our house for a few months. So we did a very unorthodox apprenticeship.
Nice. Nice.
I would love to go back down and get involved in things like that. I miss Melbourne a lot, actually.
I lived in Melbourne for 6 or 7 years myself.
Awesome.
And I lived around Preston. Yeah.
Good people come from
Indeed, indeed. So, yeah, now, if festivals, you've performed at festivals, Ellie Beach Music Festival, and was it Winter Moon as well?
We've got this little place called Cameron's Pocket about an hour and a half out of town, and they get acts from all around Australia. If my memory was a bit better, I could rattle some names off that I'm sure you'd know. But it's very small, and I was lucky enough to kind of get a crack there a few years ago. And I was the new kid on the block, and really raw and really, but they liked, I guess they liked how I condoned myself. I was very respectful. I didn't give them any grief, and I worked really hard. And now I get to do all their closing ceremonies, and sometimes, I put together a nice big band and we're the headline act. It's been this kind of really cool little festival where we get anywhere between 300 and 700 people that just go there to watch music.
Yeah.
So it was a nice confidence sort of building sort of nest for me. Winterbourne's really cool. But we've got a few more festivals, and I got down to Agnes Blues and Roots last year.
Yeah.
And I think I found my people. I'm definitely, I gave them a break this year. I'm going down to Bouldercombe to play for some of the organisers next week.
Yep.
But I think next year I'm going to bring the full band down, and yeah, we'll see. I got to get accepted first.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. What's it like trying to get accepted into these sort of festivals? Is it a bit of a challenge to get into them?
Look, I was lucky early on that word of mouth got me a lot further than it probably should have.
Yeah, right.
Because we, I guess, like I said, like we didn't give anyone any grief, but we also we put our heart and soul into our shows. We've been doing it a long time.
Yep.
But I definitely hit a snag. It was sort of like, I will never play Woodford. I won't play Mitchell Creek. These next sort of level of festivals without an EP, without content. And that's where our focus has been the last few months. I say ours because my partner's the brains in the background. I'm just the fella that jumps on the sixth string, but
yep.
We're working really hard to try and slowly build. And I've always been a believer in the grind. I always say that, but slow and steady wins the race. And every year we take a few more things off the box. And I'm really hoping this year we get to expand our sort of reach and get to play for some more people.
Nice. Okay, so now Banister Street. I've got here, the album is described as a personal collection of songs drawn from your life and those around you. Can you delve into the inspiration of the writing side of things? How did the whole album sort of come together? What's the story behind it?
It's actually my first sort of 5 or 6 songs that I'd properly sit down and written. At my EP launch, the MC told a funny joke. He used to be my drummer, and he's like, he's the only guy I've ever played with in the early days who's gone, we're going to do a 4-hour set tonight. I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to make the whole thing up. And the publicans never kicked us out. And so I was always kind of ad-libbing and writing, and I had journals and stuff. So Banister Street, for me, I'd just come out of a pretty bad breakup with the lady that taught me almost a lot of the stuff that got me started in music. Mixed in with that was, I'm going to be very transparent, was like a little bit of alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
Dabbling in all sorts of things. If you listen to the songs, it's all in there.
Yeah.
And Banister Street's kind of like my diary from my mid to late 20s. If you listen to those songs, they're quite true. If they're not directly about me, they're directly about one of my 5 siblings that are scattered across Australia. There's a lot in there. It's a very intimate album.
Yep.
A lot of the stuff I'm writing now that I've got that off my chest, is a lot more broad and exploring themes and stuff like that. But Banister Street was, if you want to dissect it and get to know me, it's not a bad place to start.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's nerve-wracking actually recording it because the songs are quite intimate. And even in my live performances, I'm very open and raw. At least I've been told that. That's the audience coming back at me going, wow, that was very, I don't lie to people. I'm very honest on stage. That's my outlet.
Yep.
Yeah, so.
Cool. Rose-Coloured Glasses been noted as your debut single. Was that your first single off the EP?
It actually was, and it was probably the first song on that I'd written out of all the songs on the EP as well. You can hear some. If you want to know where Matt Tandy's guitar picking comes from, I tried to learn "Don't Think Twice, It's Alright" by Bob Dylan when I was about 20 years old, and I learned it wrong and come up with my own sort of picking style. And 13 years on that, the finger picking and that song sort of become a signature style. But it was very much about, I guess it was about when you're a young man and you go through your first couple of relationships and you stuff up and you learn and you mature and everything like that. But rose-colored glasses is that like kind of questioning yourself, like, I've just dwelled in. I've done 5 years with something. It didn't work out. Was it me? Was it what's going on? And rose-colored glasses probably explores that.
Yep.
And as you would have been told a lot, it actually took me listening to the song a heap of times to answer that question, because when you write something, it just falls out sometimes and you sing it and you don't really think about it. So that's what was going on at the time.
With the creative process, how do you approach blending the personal stories with the music compositions?
I have a habit of I'll hit record on my phone and probably record at least 2 or 3 different sort of chord progressions a night.
Yep.
I've got thousands of recordings on my phones, and I'll hum melodies along to them. And then when I sit in front of the laptop, I have a habit of opening up 5 or 6 Word documents, and I'll just spitball all these sort of songs and I save them. And then I get together with the band and something starts sounding really, really good. And I've got hundreds of these weird poems and hundreds of these things. I go home and I go through them and work out what kind of works. A lot of these songs on this EP in particular, I was very lucky in that I kind of sang them and played them and then kind of, that sounds all right, I'll record it. And then I go back and refine it. Sometimes they just come out. Like I spent years ad-libbing on stage and faking it so I could make things up on the spot, and quite often I'll just record that. But I mean, not every song's the same either.
They're not, no.
Heavy Sippin wasn't like that. Heavy Sippin was a conscious decision to... Do you want to hear the story how Heavy Sippin was written?
Of course, yeah.
I just played a Blues on the Beach at Seabreeze in Mackay, and the lineup was Matt Tandy, Mick Woodbridge. We were the 2 local fellas. We opened for Greta Stanley, the Pierce brothers, Josh Teskey, and Ash Grumwell. That was the most humbling gig of my life.
I bet it was.
Come back from Wintermoon. I'd opened for Ash a few months earlier, but I had my friends and family there.
Yep.
So everyone was like clapping, and Ash and me got along great. He's a great guy and a big influence on my playing too. I actually bought my first guitar after watching him play live at a nightclub at Mackay when he was probably a lot younger and not as well known. And I went home and I remember Rag going, how did it go? And I said, look, this is kind of working. I was very green still. This is going back a few years. And I said, after watching the Pierce brothers, I'm like, I haven't got anything that hits hard. I haven't got anything that gets stomping going. There's no energy in my set at the moment. I'm pretty cool. Arguably, my set was probably sound.
Yeah.
And I got this resonator that was I borrowed actually from a friend, and I come up with the riff, and I've got the actual original recording. I'll send you it. You're gonna laugh.
That'd be awesome.
Demo. I found it the other day.
Yep.
And it was, you can hear me humming the melody. The melody come the first time I played it, but the riff was a lot slower. And it kind of developed over the next sort of week and a half. And I tried to record it with another guy locally. And originally it was just going to be, I was really into like Johnny Cash, God's Gonna Cut Me Down. I wanted resonated stomps and claps and really raw blues, you know?
Yep.
And then my best friend who plays all the bass and all the drums on that record that me and him started together when we were 15, come up with the halftime and come up with the bass and come up with the production and really gave the song a new light. And yeah, I guess that was a manufactured kind of song. We always wanted Heavy Sippin to be heavy hitting, but it took 5 years for it to get there, you know?
Yeah. Nah, it's always like that though. You play on something for a bit and you sort of don't know where to take it, and then, you know, years later, bang. Yep.
That's exactly
the light switches on. Yep.
Yeah.
Going back to your
Sorry, Calvin.
no, you're right.
Sorry, Calvin.
No, you're all good. You're all good.
Kids bath time. They didn't turn the tap on enough. So there's a big squealing out.
No, all good. So the production of the EP, how was that as an experience for you?
Oh, it was like being naked in front of your whole high school.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So where I'm sitting right now is my home studio. So I dabbled a little bit with home demos and stuff, but nothing can quite prepare you for the first time. You got the cans on.
Yep.
They're dropping you in. But my friend that I recorded it with, me and him we played Under the Bridge at a party when we were 15 years old, and he's one of the best musicians I know. He's a phenomenal guitar player. So for us to when I got the Radif grant, it was a council grant that I got, and I booked into the studio. For us to walk in on the first day, it was like so special. And Rhea, my wife, was there documenting a lot of it. And she's like, you two guys were just like happy to be there.
Yeah.
We were both humbled at different stages. TJ's a flash drummer. He'd never played to a metronome. You'll hate me saying this, but it was funny because I had to walk out, you know, I was getting a bit nervous. I'm like, oh, look, I'll let him find his feet. And he really stumbled across the first song for about an hour. And I come back in, and Andrew Nolan, our producer, turned around. He's like, oh, this guy's quick. And he just plowed through the rest of the songs. It was great. Like, yeah, he is. He's incredible. We did a lot of writing in the studio too. Like, none of the bass lines were written. So
okay,
a lot of it was kind of TJ throwing these fancy bass lines and then me kind of settling them down and finding, because through my home studio, I'd learned recording's different. You need to leave a lot of space. There's spaces and layers to build.
Yep.
Not a live performance. So if something's too busy early on, it can really bite you down the track. Yep. So that was any young artists, don't make the mistake that I did and make things busy. Like, just go slow.
Yep.
You know? Think of it like a painting. You put your backdrop on, and we learned that pretty quickly, but humbling, nerve-wracking, but can't wait to get back in there.
Yeah, sure. You're known for playing guitar. Is it harmonica as well?
Yeah, I'm a pretty avid, I love my harmonica playing. I've got about 12 of them.
Sure.
You know what's funny, Kel? It didn't occur to me till I got home. I said to Ray, I'm like, there's no harmonica on the EP. I was so locked into getting it all across the line.
Yeah.
But the next one's going to be really harp heavy because the live act is, and I love stomp, a cappella, the power of the harp. The harmonica gets people going. The crowd loves it.
Yep.
And And it's a pretty forgiving instrument, which is good if you're a guy like me who flies off the cuff a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing's too polished, so
Yeah. So do you look up to somebody local when you with your harmonica playing, or is it self taught, or how did you pick it up?
long before I was interested in music, my late grandfather gave me a harmonica,
Right.
and I sat in a drain when I was about 13 years old and learned Amazing Grace.
Yep.
And then as I got older, I always owned one, and I started sucking and blowing and mucking around. I kind of taught myself, but when I rediscovered Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee,
Yep.
and listening to so much blues, the noises were in my head.
Yep.
So once I sort of printed a few scales, that's kind of what I do. I look at it, I have a bit of a crack, and then I just figured it out. I'm not a flash harmonica player, but it's very basic harp.
Yep.
But from all the listening I've done over the years, it's smooth and it fits. And that's all a person wants when they invite you up to play harp at these festivals. I go, "Hi, Matt, would you like to come up and play harp on the song?" You find your little rhythm pocket.
Yep.
And you don't overblow. And if they give you a little bit of space, you can give it a bit. But I don't think harp needs to be carried away. I think the instrument itself is special and fits in the blues.
Yeah, it definitely does. I definitely agree. Yeah. Yeah. So I've on my last show I had Ian Collard. If you know who Ian Collard is?
I've heard of you, yeah.
Collard Greens and Gravy. Yep. He is an awesome harmonica player. Yeah.
Did he stand in, or was that a show that you were at? Or
No. See, what I do, I have a segment called Live at the Embass, and it's the Melbourne Blues Appreciation Society. They hold a blues jam session every Tuesday night, and they have a feature artist play for the first hour and a half, and they have a get the public in to do a jam session.
Yeah.
So what I do is I've got the go ahead to take the audio from a live stream that they do, and he was one of their feature artists. He's pretty much a regular feature artist that they have there. So yeah, and his harmonica playing is just out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to have a listener and watch, because that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
When you get those guys that are like special,
Yeah.
it steals the show. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Give them as much rope as they want.
Yeah, and then you look at another guy. He's unfortunately passed on now. Chris Wilson.
Not familiar with.
Yeah, look up Chris Wilson as well. He was a school teacher in Melbourne.
Yeah.
He released a blues album with Diesel.
Cool.
Yep.
Hey, was this the one they did in the barn?
I don't know.
We'll look it up.
Yeah, the album was called Short Cool Ones.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that might have been done in a barn. I was listening to a Diesel podcast the other day, and him and a sensational harp player, they made a really raw record together.
Yep.
Sorry, Kel, you keep going.
No, you're right. Yeah, no, he's this was back in probably before you were born. 94 or 95, something mid to early 90s it was. So
yeah. I would have just been a little tucker, maybe.
Still in nappies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
34, so yeah, I would have been, hopefully not still in nappies at 6, but yeah, it would have been close.
Yeah.
Chris Wilson, I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. His vocals are pretty out there as well. He's got a distinctive, gritty, low voice as well.
Yeah, like more of a baritone sort of blues. Has he got the husk as well?
Yeah.
With the harp?
Yep. No, he's just one of a kind, that bloke. Live at the Continental is probably his most well known album. It's pretty much a live album at a hotel, and you look up Chris Wilson, and that'll be his main thing you find when you look him up.
You triggered a few. Like my radar went up when you said that he did that album with Diesel. I'm pretty sure Chris Wilson was one of the couple of guys he did this particular blues album with in this barn. I'll revisit the podcast, make sure my facts are straight. But apparently, I think when I first heard that too, I looked it up. It's like quite raw and quite cool because Diesel's an underrated. If you don't know Diesel, like when you actually listen to his actual electric guitar playing, he's pretty world class. Sometimes it gets overlooked. People go, "Oh, Diesel, Brian Shane," but they don't realize that he had a Jimi Hendrix show, like the toured, and it's friggin' phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
No, very, very underrated, I think.
There was a funny thing. He used to get in trouble in the early days. He couldn't always afford his finger slides.
Oh.
So he used to put his dad's 14mm mechanic sockets on his finger. His dad was looking for his sockets.
Oh, what? Oh, man. Things we do.
Yeah, I know. When it doesn't always make money at first.
Yeah. Now, you seem to be a pretty out there type of guy when it comes to your live performances. How important is like your fan interaction?
Well, I think it's the difference between being an act and putting on a show.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you something truthful at the moment. 2 years ago, my friends invited me to Byron Bay Blues Fest. I'd never been to one. Truthfully, I hadn't been to many festivals. I'd been to a lot of small gigs over the years, and like things were going pretty good with the music at that stage. But when I went there, I was being a music buff. Like Ray, my wife would tell you, Matt's read every order, but like I just, it's my hobby. I love it so much. I'd be a musical historian if I could. I didn't know who Chris Wilson was though, so I got to do my homework, right?
Yeah.
All the old stuff, and I just watched the whole festival. I was there from when it started to when it finished every night, and just really sucked it all in. And I come back like a man possessed. I'm like, stagecraft is a thing. That's being from a rural town. You can put on a good show, but you get to a level. I was like, some of these guys, like I watched Beck live, I watched Cash Sultana live, I watched Buddy Guy live. The list goes on. You know what that festival's like.
Yeah.
This super club of all the awesomeness you can possibly imagine. A gang of youths, everything. And I learned that people pay money to come and feel something. And that it's not just playing the chords and singing the songs, it's about the show. And last year I forced myself to do around 49, 50 pub gigs and just force myself in environments where people aren't actually coming for a show, they're coming for background music, and force myself to practice, I wonder if I can get them to engage, and did a little bit of a rogue kind of practice sort of, apprenticeship in that. And Airlie Beach Music Festival last year, it really clicked. Every day more and more people were coming along, and at one stage the power went out at a venue, and where in the past I would have freaked out and gone, let's get the power going, but without hesitation I ripped my jack lead out and I jumped up on the biggest table I could find and told everyone to come in and play the set acoustically. I would have never done that if I didn't go to that festival.
Right, yeah.
And I'm sure everyone at that festival had their moments too where they made that realization. Michael Franti is like a sermon. Go and watch it. He talks to his audience. He brings them in. He does all this stuff. And so now, and at Airlie, I blew my voice out so badly on the last day, I had to sing everything in a lower octave. So right off the get-go, I told the audience everything I'd done that weekend that had led to my voice blowing out. And they were with me. I said, come on, guys, we'll do this together. And made it more of a comedy set for an hour, and it did. And someone sent me a message saying they see me twice that weekend, and that was the better show. So it was like going back to the drawing board. I was like, well, the music was actually pretty bad on that last show because I couldn't sing, but people go to a show for the experience. So I think that any young artist, we need to make sure we're tipping our time to stagecraft and putting the energy into it, because it's the next step from being an act to being a show. People pay for a show. People can get an act. It's different. And I'm figuring it out, Kelvin. that's how my brain works. I'm always like, right, well, what's the next micro millimeter forward? And festival really blew my mind in regards to how those people made me feel, each and one of them in different ways.
Mm.
Can any angle, it's crazy.
So do you have a memorable moment where you've played live in like a particular festival or a pub or a like a brewery or something where something really stood out for you?
The EP launch last weekend was pretty special. I forced myself to play a 2 hour show from start to finish where I rotated bands and brought people in and out and pulled it back and did a cappellas, told stories and cried during a song and the audience got upset and then you bring it back with a thing. But I would say Winter Moon a couple of years ago, my mum passed away pretty much shortly after. It was the last time she come, and that festival had actually made her a special little path, and they wheeled her up to the shrine. And my mum made all these beanies, and she wasn't this old decrepit lady or anything. She was a 63-year-old woman, like that just unfortunately had cancer, and she made hundreds of beanies. And at Winter Moon Festival, if you've never been there, this is the kind of people they are. They spread the beanies throughout the whole crowd and they got everyone up the front and they pulled me off the stage before I started as a surprise. And they got this photo of me and all the ladies because mum had left the day before.
Mm.
And they took this photo of me with like 70 people all wearing mum's beanies to send her. And she was in her bed and,
Oh, mate.
awesome. And that's why she made them. And those kind of moments is they don't happen very often. And that might not happen again in my whole music career. And like, I think stuff like that, even in a small rural setting, people just don't forget that stuff as long as they go to festivals. It was upsetting at the time, but it was also really beautiful. And I look back now and pinch myself. I'm like, I can't believe that actually happened. It wasn't about the act of that stage either. It was about the musical community that these small festivals hold. And Woodford would have started like that. The festivals, every single festival we mentioned today, they all start off small and intimate, and those communities, the heart of the festivals, why we go originally.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's lots of them, album, but that one sticks out for me, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So with the release of Banister Street and how successful that's gone for you, what's coming out next for you in the way of music? Anything big? Any big projects or anything like that?
Well, I've got a couple of festivals coming up.
Yep.
I'm waiting to hear back from a few. That was the main goal.
Yep.
But I mentioned the Radif grant earlier. I was lucky that my Radif showcase went on to Arts Queensland. They liked the stuff, so it's being presented there. It's going to open the door to bigger grants. And I have a few ideas in the pipeline. One of them being in which I want to make a pretty hardcore traditional blues album.
Yep.
I'd love to do that. Maybe even record it live. I haven't really made my mind up, but I want to get some hot players together. Hot players from rural towns that people may not have heard of, but are by any standard really great. We got some great guys up here that no one's heard of. That's one thing, and I've got some other ideas. I love the idea of working with rural communities and the youth to make some music. I'm a big my day job is disability support work, but I'm sort of pushing in the direction of youth work and stuff like that. And I know as a pretty wild young fella, music isn't hobby for me. I met my wife through music. I found my career through music. I was happy to be broke and play music. My whole life's been built around it.
Yep.
I'd say that, and I just want to keep pushing forward and playing to more and more people. The end game for me is nothing crazy. I just want to have build on my body of work now. I want to have there's certain albums I want to make now, and I want to share those with people, and I want to collaborate with people, and
yep.
And
who would you most want to collaborate with?
I want to start with collaborating with two local blokes, Josh Notting and Ronnie Croker. Because in my opinion, they are, by any standard, if anyone around Australia seen these two guys play blues guitar, they'd be astounded. They're really awesome. And they're going to laugh if they hear this. They're going to go, oh, Matt, but they're fantastic. And I'll collaborate with just about anyone. I just want to play music with as many people as I can. And one thing about like losing your mum and a few friends, like that's sort of a lot of the EP's been about honouring people. I lost a lot of people in a really short period of time. Don't waste your time.
Yep.
My mum's advice to me was, you've got a talent, stop mucking around. You're a major procrastinator. You've been doing this for ages, and I'm going to try and record as much music and play as many festivals and collaborate with as many people as I can.
Yeah.
And just make it fun and happy, because that's what music's supposed to be.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially the blues.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Definitely. It's such a genre. A couple of guys up there sharing blues solos.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Yep. So just one more. I've got one more question for you. Just sort of elaborating a bit more on the collaboration side of things. If you had the chance to start a band up with someone famous, someone that's still with us, someone that's been gone for years, who would be in that band?
Such a crazy question. Let's have a think. All right, so we're gonna go 30 blues. So let's put John Bonham on the drum kit starters.
Yep.
You know what? Let's make it funky. We're gonna put Fleet from the Red Hot Chili Peppers on the bass guitar.
Yep.
Let's have a classic and a new grade. So let's see what Eric Clapton on electric guitar sounds like with a crazy dude like John Frusciante. Backup singers, let's get Janis Joplin.
Yep.
Let's get who's wicked. There's so much you could go from here. Hey, you got to get buddy Miles Davis on the horn.
Miles Davis.
You could do with some blues. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I reckon just let's throw a heap of random people from different genres and pot, and let's try and see what comes out. I won't throw James Brown in there because I won't get a word in. That guy's probably the greatest player of all time. But you know where I'm coming from. I'd just try and get crazy collab and just see what comes out of it. Musicians at that level know how to give each other space, so you're always going to get something at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
And if someone could wake up Keith Richards, whack him in there
too. Exactly.
He's thinking the writer.
Yeah. Look, one guy I was talking to last week. Now I've got him on the show next week. Steve Tallis. He's originally from WA. He's now located over in Paris. He was telling me that the way he picks, he's picky with his musicians.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want them to rehearse.
Yeah.
Yep. So he wants them to be raw.
Yeah.
So no practicing, just get there and do it. Yep.
I love that.
It's like when he gets on stage, it's like it's the first time he's playing that song.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's always fresh. He personally doesn't rehearse himself before he does a gig.
Yeah.
He just gets there and does it.
I really love that. Because one of the things that frustrates anyone that plays with me, they call it getting Matt Tandy. I'm not proud of it. I'm not one for set lists.
Yeah.
And generally when there is a set list, take it as a little bit of just a rough guide of what might happen or what might not happen.
Yeah.
Steve Tallis is on the money.
Yeah.
He might be similar in that you just ride off the adrenaline. And if you're a jammer, I did a lot of my time just going to jam sessions and just playing and jamming with friends and stuff. And I believe that you get the right guys on stage and you start jamming, that audience is they're in for something special. And especially people that like the blues, they look for that stuff. They don't want rinse and repeat. They want to hear new solos. They want to hear what that guitar tones, how they go together.
Exactly.
He's Chicago influenced. He's Louisiana blues influenced. Holy shit, that's a whole different thing, It's
yeah. Well,
let's add it into my list. Steve Tallis.
Yeah. When you get a chance, that's the album.
Yep.
Memory Ghost.
Memory Ghost.
Yep. Right. It's a three CD album. 66 tracks on it.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
So, yeah. So I've got, as I said, I've got him on the show coming up this Sunday, and he's a really interesting guy to chat to. He's in his 60 something year in his music career.
Talking to a guy like that would be so incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not just because of what they've accomplished and achieved, but because they've seen the industry change more than once.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to chat with a person like that. They just know, they would have forgotten more than you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to give me a couple of pearlers to go and listen to now.
Yeah, definitely I will. Yes, there's with music in general, my taste is just broad.
Yeah,
really broad. But I've only sort of started to get into blues music in the last probably 4 or 5 years, maybe.
Yeah.
I think I was brought up on 50s, 60s. The old man was into Johnny Cash and the easy beats, and so Presley. So I was sort of fit for that genre of music from the start, but blues music is just something special, I guess, isn't it? Really,
it is. There's lots of different ways in which it comes out. Well, I love the community aspect of blues.
Yeah.
Had a birthday. Me and my partners combined our 34th and 36th birthday this year. And we just had all the gear set up in the lounge room, and and me and all these guys from all these other bands had never played together, and we played ad-lib blues all night long. The neighbours still haven't spoken to me. It used to be all right. But the thing was that Ray's like, well, I don't think you guys played a single cover, but it was just so fun. And I was like, yeah, because we were exploring each other, which prevents. And you're right, like blues music's like this universal language. Got harp, it's special. It's and it's timeless. And no one can argue against the fact that it's timeless. It's sprinkled through every genre, hip hop, to country, to everything's got.
Yeah, definitely. You go over to America and blues. It's not just the traditional blues anymore. It's now spreading over to modern day soul music, hip hop. Yeah, it's all based around the blues. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll give you one artist to check out, Calvin, that I discovered not that long ago. You probably already know him, but if you don't, enjoy. He's just another weird little take, but it's Black Joe Lewis and the Honey Bears.
Right.
And has his big hits are "Bitch I Love You," but he's got a lot of other stuff. But it's combining almost like combination of ghetto rap with Texas blues, traditional sounds, dirty guitars. He's a really talented guy, and it's really minimal.
Yeah.
They're not trying to squeeze too much in. It's very cool. It's kind of like three guys are jamming in your lounge room kind of thing. But I've been really digging them lately.
Oh, nice. I'll check that out. Definitely check that out. All right, Matt. Well, look, it's been a pleasure having the chat. I better let you go. It's probably getting late where you are there now. So
thanks, mate.
You got kids to sort out, I take it?
Yeah, I can hear them outside the door.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. And we'll definitely keep in touch, and mate, good luck with whatever you get up to next in the way of touring.
Absolutely.
Loving it.
Hopefully get down your way, Calvin, and meet you in person.
Fantastic. That'll be awesome.
And please keep doing what you're doing, mate. It's awesome. I'll be checking into Mr. Chalice's podcast. I love what you do. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, mate. You take care, and we'll chat again soon.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
The Blues Hotel.